So the first thing I want to touch on with EIP 1559 is, did it work? Did it accomplish what we set out for it to do? And to do that, we have to acknowledge what two of its primary goals were, and those being to reduce congestion and to reduce the variance of the gas prices. The second point is fairly straightforward, but the first one needs some expansion. Now, what is congestion, and what does that term mean? Defining it is a bit difficult because it's intentionally broad and vague, but generally it means the negative effects that are experienced when there's too much traffic in the Ethereum blockchain. Now, due to it being very vague, there's a couple different ways we could try to study it mathematically. One of the ways that the previous team defined congestion, a possible way to study congestion, were the gas prices used in the block. Now, expanding on that idea, we can analyze the gas prices both in the first day of EIP 1559 and October of EIP 1559. And we can notice a couple of things. The first thing that's very noticeable is that the gas prices are drastically reduced in both time frames. No matter if it's the first day or October, the gas prices are drastically reduced. Now, going forward to the inherent variance, we see that we have to rescale the units because of the inherent discrepancy of the size of the two time frames. And once we do that, we notice that the variance is actually higher on the post EIP 1559 on the first day, which is fairly interesting. However, once a couple of months pass, the variance post EIP is actually lower, meaning EIP did accomplish its goal on both fronts. It just took a bit of time. In the next way I want to measure possible congestion is the relative fullness of the blocks relative pre and post EIP 1559. Now, when analyzing pre-EIP 1559, something I want to stress is that the histogram is skewed to the left very significantly. Like, most of the blocks are very full relative to post EIP 1559. And something else that's very important to keep in mind is that the histogram's bins are very tight packed together, especially relative to post EIP. Now, moving on to post EIP, we notice that the skewing of the distribution has essentially flipped. The blocks are much more likely to be on the emptier side, only reaching the block gas limit less than 1/5 of the time. And this next graph basically illustrates how different these two price regimes are. Pre-EIP 1559 is basically a sliver in comparison to how very post-EIP 1559 is. And an interesting point is that despite this, the average gas used in the block is actually higher post-EIP. So even though there's less congestion, there's less congestion, even though there's more gas being used overall in the Ethereum marketplace. So the next thing I want to touch on is collusion. Collusion is important to everyone using Ethereum, but what is it? And, how do we use it? So collusion, in layman's terms, is when a bunch of miners pool their resources to manipulate the blockchain protocol to their advantage. Now, what this looks like is they're basically lowering the base fee as much as possible to increase their revenue. What this looks like in a practical sense is miners publishing a series of blocks below the gas target in an attempt to increase their revenue. But realistically, we can't expect just all miners in a specific scenario to be colluding. There would be a subset of miners that would just be going about their business, not part of this pool. So in our collusion scenario, we say a certain subset of miners are short-sighted and a certain percentage of miners are colluding. And expanding on this scenario, we set a collusion scenario of constant demand with a 30% collusion. And the previous Camcos team found that in this scenario, we have a base fee that is decreasing and revenues are increasing for everyone involved, colluding or not. What this means in a practical sense is that everyone in this price regime is going to move towards collusion because the pricing mechanism basically rewards it. Expanding on this result, I want to go towards 10, 60, and 80% collusion within the same collusion framework. And an interesting result is kind of gained. Something that I want to note is that there is a very slight decrease to base fee and a very slight increase to miner revenue, although it's short-sighted miner revenue, although it's very slight. But the thing that I thought was interesting is that there's basically no effect of diminishing returns. The higher the level of collusion, the higher the rewards.